Well, hi everybody, it's Lisa here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been a very long time since I've posted a video, but tonight I'm doing a special video. I'm doing a tutorial for a little girl called Rosie and her mum, and they have just got a new sewing machine. And Rosie's quite young, but already she's learned how to thread up her sewing machine and she's learned how to do straight lines. So that's absolutely fabulous. So she was looking for some quick and easy projects, and I suggested these lavender bags. Now usually I would have one ready to show you, but time is very tight because Rosie wants to get started as quickly as possible, which is understandable. So what we'll do is we'll do a tutorial and we'll make up the bag and you'll see it at the end. So what are you going to need to make up a little lavender bag? So first of all, you're going to need a piece of fabric, and for those of you that are beginners, I am going to tell you a wee bit about the fabric. So if you're making a lavender bag, you want or anything else for that matter, you want to make sure that you don't make it upside down. I have made things like these mobile phone cushions upside down before. So this fabric, it doesn't matter. You know, this is obviously the right way because these are little bows. And this fabric with the rainbows, clearly we know the right way up here. So we would need to have this way. It's the same with these cats. The pattern is one directional, so there, if you sew it the wrong way, you'll have an upside down lavender bag. You get a lot of fabrics like these that are non-directional. It doesn't matter which way you turn this round. You can't go wrong and you can't make a mistake. So it's these are quite good for beginners, and this type of pattern is good for beginners because you don't really notice if you've gone a wee bit squint with your straight lines. This one is clearly can only go one way, but this rainbow one can go that way or that way. You wouldn't really want to do it sideways though, would you? Because that just looks silly. So I have cut out some of these fabrics for Rosie, and I'm going to give her a wee pile of fabric to have a practice on. So what else are we going to need for this project? We're going to need a template so that we can cut out our pattern for our lavender bags. And I find, until I just show you, I use one of these. These are actually for quilting, and it's got grid lines on it, so I use that to cut out and to get my straight lines. But if you're a beginner, the best way is just to cut out a piece of card or a piece of paper to the size that you want and use that as a template. You can draw around with a pencil, or you could stick a little pin through it to hold it in place and cut round it. So this template is 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. I know kids in Scotland don't work with sizes in inches. They use centimetres and metres, but because I'm a crafter, I find it easier to work with the old imperial measurements. So I am going to just cut this out with my fabric scissors. Fabric scissors are really, really good when you start sewing, but they are very sharp and very dangerous, so you need to be careful. You also need to make sure nobody uses your fabric scissors to cut out paper or anything else. You can see here that I have a little tag on my scissors because I did catch my husband trying to cut up an old CD-ROM with my fabric scissors, so that wasn't good. But these are very handy. So I have drawn the little line down here, and when I cut it, I don't want to snip right to the end of the scissors because that'll leave a little groove. So you'll see there, I'm only going so far, and then I'll open my scissors again, same again, not going right down until I get to the very end, and that is it cut. So we now have our 2 pieces of fabric. You could easily have left that together, not cut it, and just folded it over, and you would only have the 2 seams to sew. But however, I like everything to be neat and tidy, so I've decided to cut it. What else do we need? We need some thread. This is the brand of thread I use in my sewing machine. I know there's lots of brands, lots of cheaper brands, but this one doesn't shed fibres in your sewing machine, so it's a much cleaner thread to use and it'll help make your sewing machine last longer. So I always use this brand, Gutermann. I'm not sure how you say it, I've probably said it wrong. And with matching up your thread colour, you would, if you don't have exactly the right colour, you would go for a thread that's maybe a little bit lighter than your fabric. So I've kind of gone for this lilac, that'll tone in quite well there. But you really can't go wrong with white thread. I mean, when you put that there, you can barely notice it. So in your sewing box, you will always have some white thread, some cream thread, and maybe some black thread, and you can actually do a lot with that. We are also going to need some ribbon. For this lavender bag, I'm going to use this white organza ribbon. But, I mean, I just gather up ribbon. This is one of my friends gave me this ribbon yesterday, and I don't throw ribbon away. If I get, I even cut the ribbon off the inside of the clothes where you would use to help hang your clothes on the hanger, and I keep it. And I know that Rosie is all for recycling, so she's probably got some ribbon lying around the house. This is all creased, so I would generally just run this through my straightening irons, and that would straighten it out. You also want to make sure you iron your fabric before you start, because you don't want it to look like this, full of creases, because it's not going to be a nice neat finish. We also need some dried lavender. Now this is organic dried lavender that I have here, but you could easily use toy stuffing and essential oils. This is a beautiful one, lemon, clary sage and lavender. And all you would do, if you were using toy stuffing, I always separate it and fluff it up. It goes much further if you do that. So I always do that. Before I start to sew the material, I am going to show you how I set up the machine. I always choose maybe about a 2 or a 2.5 stitch length. I don't want to go any less than 2. That'll be teeny weeny. And up here is my tension. I've got that set between 3 and 4. I'll probably move it to 4. Every machine is different, but what you would do is you would take a scrap of your fabric, fold it over, fix your tension, and then run it through your machine and sew it, and make sure that the stitches are even on the top and the bottom of the fabric. If you find that they're not, they're a bit loose, you can alter your tension. If you find that the stitches underneath are really loose, take everything off, rethread your machine, paying particular attention to the spool at the bottom, because that feeds the underneath stitches, I believe. And this is the stitch size, I guess. When I'm doing straight stitches, I always set that to 0. So I'm going to do a quick test and then we'll get started. I'll see you in a second. So I've done my wee test and I'm quite happy with the settings I've got. So here we are ready to sew. I have gone round the edge with a pencil. You'll see there, I've gone a bit wrong there, but this is the inside, this is the ugly side, and the pretty side is in here. So right sides together, making sure the fabric is the right way. This is going to be the top. So if you draw pencil lines, that'll help keep you right and you know that you're not going to sew this bit. You'll see here I haven't gone right into the corner there, and I'll show you how to turn the corner on the sewing machine. I also put another bit of fabric together to show you that you could actually use one piece of fabric, one long piece, and fold it in half and just stitch the 2 edges. But I'm going to stitch, so that's just a different way of doing it, an easier way of doing it maybe, but I'm just going to stitch around the whole thing as if we're using 2 pieces of fabric. So I've got the machine all set up, the presser foot is down, the needle is lined up with this line. I have got a good few inches of thread. If your tails of thread are too short, your needle is going to come undone. The thread's going to come out of the needle. So I usually hang on to this tail and then manually pull the wheel down at the right hand side of the machine over here, and I just pull that towards me to lower the needle into the fabric. Never ever, always turn that wheel towards you to do your manual stitches. Never ever turn it away from you. Let's just check we're lined up. And we are going to, I am going to use the edge of my presser foot as a guide so that the seam is going to be even. But you'll just go down and follow your pencil line. So I would always make sure my fabric is lining up with the right hand side of this presser foot. And we're going to go to the right into the corner. We're going to stop at the corner. We're not going to come right down to the bottom. But see, if you did come right down to the bottom, you would just back stitch back up. Oh, I forgot to back stitch at the beginning, but never mind, that won't matter this time. So I can see I'm not right in at the corner, so I'm going to manually pull down the wheel towards me and make a couple of stitches. And the way you turn the corner is you keep your needle in place. You lift your presser foot, but your needle has gone right through the fabric, so it's holding your fabric in place. and we are bang on right in the corner. If we weren't, if we had stopped too far up, we would just turn it back round, put the presser foot down and do a manual stitch by pulling the wheel towards you. But we're okay, so we're good to go. Right, so I'll do one manual stitch. Oh, maybe another one I can see. And now we've reached the next corner and we are going to come back up the other side. Now you don't need to be too fussy. You don't have to do a straight line. It doesn't need to be even all the way across. And we'll do a wee back stitch this time. That's us finished. So we turn the wheel towards us to lift the needle up and we pull out. If the stitches is if the thread's a bit tight and it doesn't want to release, just pull that wheel at the right hand side towards you and it will release it. So I do have a thread cutter on machine, but I never use it, so I'm just going to cut that myself. So I'll see you in a minute. So we're back over at the cutting mat. I've moved the machine to the side and you'll see we've made almost like a little pocket. We've got an opening at the top. We've gone all the way round, but we have these thick corners. So we want to be snipping them. We don't want to go right into the corner because if we go near these stitches, the fabric's going to fray, isn't it? And it's going to come loose. So we're going to leave a little bit, cut diagonally, leave a wee bit there. And we shall do the same at the other side. You can also trim these edges if they are a wee bit too wide. But see, to be honest, it's not going to matter because we're going to get a nice neat line when we turn it the right way out. So let's turn it the right way out now. Now you'll see we've got a raw edge at the top. That's just like an edge that doesn't have a seam. And I've got one of these wee tools and that I'm very, very gently pushing out these corners. But we don't want to be very rough because we'll rip the fabric. It will come right through. You don't want to ever use your scissors to do this because your scissors will just poke a hole all the way through. But you could maybe use the end of a pencil or something like that. So that's our sachet already. I would normally give it an iron just now, so I'll go and do that and then I'll come back. Okay, I've given it a little press. And now we just need to empty in some toy stuffing or some lavender. I have mine in a bag that went wrong, so I'm just going to use that. This is the second lavender bag I've made for this video. The first one went wrong because I'm a wee bit rusty and I didn't get the seam right along the top. Okay. So you want to put the toy stuffing or the dried lavender in till it's maybe about halfway up. I'm just going to reach over and get a pin to hold it in place. And you'll see we have a raw edge here. We want to hide that because it will make it look much nicer. Actually, I don't want the pin in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck that in. Okay. And you could actually tuck it in quite a bit. Let's do it quite a bit. So I've tucked it in about that much, so that it looks like when we stitch it together and tie it with a ribbon, it looks like the bag's open. So just make sure you turn it in enough and push the stuffing all the way down. Get it nice and even, although it doesn't have to be. It's going to be tied up at the end with a little ribbon. Okay, so now we're going to stitch along here, making sure that we stitch above this line. If we stitch underneath it, then it's going to come loose. So we want to stitch maybe up here so that we're catching that double amount of fabric on each side. I hope that makes sense. Although this is the right side, you could even use your ruler and draw a couple of wee pencil lines just to keep you right. Let's face it, you're not going to see that. Even if you drew a whole line there, you wouldn't see it because you're going to stitch along this line and then you're going to tie it up with ribbon. So I'll see you at the sewing machine. Okay, we've got the sewing machine back on the table. Apologies because the light is getting really bad now. But we're basically just going to stitch along this line, and we'll do a back stitch at the beginning and a back stitch at the end. And be careful of the pin. I'm going to take this pin out just as I move along. Right, you're probably not going to be able to see this bit very clearly because we've got the padded bit here, but I'm going to make a wee start, and I actually have a line on my sewing machine. I've got a stitch guide that matches up perfectly with the end of this fabric, with the edge, so I'm going to just run it through that and line it up with that back stitch. And I'm keeping the edge lined up along this guide. I'm starting to get near my pin, so I'm going to take that out. We are almost at the end. We're still lined up with the guide on the sewing machine. And I'm going to do a couple of back stitches. And go to the end. Press our foot up. Cut. And there we go. I will move the sewing machine and see you in a second. So here we are. I've trimmed off all the loose threads. If you use your back stitch at the beginning and the end, you should be able to just snip the threads. But I always do like to hand stitch them and tuck them in and make it nice and neat. And if we open it up, you'll see we have a nice, neat inside. And once we gather it up with the ribbon, it's going to look like it's open, but it's actually not open. And we're going to tie it up with ribbon now. Going to use this one, nice white one. can be a wee bit fiddly, this bit. I've already tied up the sachet. I'll show you in a wee minute, but I wanted to show you how I stop my ribbon from fraying. So this is how I would cut it. And no children allowed. Children are not allowed to do this bit. Please get an adult to do this bit. But I just kind of quickly run like a lighter over the edge, and that will seal it, but it does burn very quickly, so it's literally a couple of seconds. So this is our little lavender sachet. Take time, spend time getting your bow just right. You know, make each bit that comes down, make them the same length, fix it, kind of make it look pretty. That's it from the back. If you want to make sure the ribbon's not going to come loose, you could just put a couple of little hand stitches in the back, just a couple of stitches before you gather it up, and then it'll never come loose. But if that ribbon comes off, it doesn't matter because the top is completely sealed, so you don't even need to use the ribbon. You can just have a lavender square rather than a lavender sachet. So that's it. It's all done. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I wish you could smell how lovely this is because it has a mixture of the lavender and some essential oils in it as well, and it's really, really nice. So it has taken us a little bit of time to do the video, but once you get the hang of it, you can make these really quickly. And I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you again soon. Bye.